Hello, this is Gordon Angelino, and I'm here to say that while I agree with the author of the How It All Ends series, um, I do want to add a little bit to the debate, perhaps to give those holdouts some means of finding common ground, because we don't necessarily have to have some liberal socialism telling you what to do with your money or having extremely high taxes. There are ways of doing this whole climate change, fighting against this climate change without dramatically increasing the size of government. One is to reorder budgetary priorities away from, feckless social programs toward saving the planet, quote unquote. The fact that many of the large studies I didn't catch this guy's name, but it is a great series. I really should give him credit for that. One of the things that we can do is be mindful of the fact that most of the estimates made by these major governmental and organizational entities, scientific entities, are based on the technology that we have now. And as we know, even in the next few years, we're going to have tremendous technological breakthroughs, especially if we have a tax system that rewards and gives tax breaks indirectly to those who come up with better ways of avoiding the production of greenhouse gases and so forth. Just having that drawing upon that mental capital will mean a lot less current capital in dollars or whatever reserve currency in your country it is needed to be spent to fight global warming, so we'll be doing it more efficiently. And also, we do want to keep our governments limited, because we've looked at the Soviet Union compared to the United States, and guess what? The Soviet Union, Communist China had environments that were much worse in almost every way. Acid rain. You can look at almost any particular bad environmental feature, and it's much more benign in the United States than it is in, say, the Soviet Union or Communist China. We don't want a more socialist state, and we don't want more per capita government taxation. That would be extraordinarily bad, because the less limited governments tend to be environmentally cleaner than the more limited governments, or the larger governments as a function of per person. We can have a small government and a cleaner environment, and the two go hand in hand. But we have to reorganize our taxes. We have to reorganize what we tax, how we tax, when we tax it, and we should be giving tax breaks anyway. The American consumer, the American voter, the American retiree is taxed enough. We pay so much in taxes, we don't need to pay any more. We just need to reorder what we have now. And also, as I said before, new technologies. Provide the incentives, and the technologies will come. Right now, we could easily, although actually no, point 3 would be, there's no need to have this acrimonious debate anymore, because some of the environmental changes that we would be making in terms of policy would also be good for conservatives in, say, the National Security Department. Sorry for the major pause there, but I'm shooting off the cuff. The National Security Department, because if we can gain sources outside of crude oil, do more nuclear and geothermal and so forth, we won't need to buy oil from the Saudis or from anybody else in the Middle East. It'll be kind of a situation where those societies will fall to the level of wealth that would be their level minus their resources. That's the problem, is the Middle East has a resource base that is not commensurate with its ideological, or what would you call it, resource base based on the number of smart, intelligent researchers it has. So, if we force them to fall to that level where their religion starts really depressing personal incomes and the incomes of the ruling class, we might get to see some change in that region. And at least they wouldn't have money to buy weapons of mass destruction and so forth. They would be worried about buying food instead. Anyway, so we can solve many problems with one policy initiative, and that is fighting this climate change. And we don't need to fight it just by making our lives some little dark green environmentalist hellhole where we go back to the 19th or 18th centuries. No, we do not need to do that. The increasing efficiency of solar panels, engineering solutions. You can have orbital mirrors. The Russians were thinking about an orbital mirror back in the late 90s to warm up their country, which they never did because I'm pretty sure the international community lambasted them for that. Why not turn the mirror the other way? Have global cooling in certain regions over the poles and things like that. So our global warming is a function of how much sunlight is coming in to how much is being radiated out, and we're radiating out less than is coming in. So changing that dynamic with some sort of engineering solution. You could seed the upper atmosphere with reflective material, which would take some time to come down because of wind patterns and everything, although that might be kind of expensive in itself. The cost-benefit analysis would have to be done. But there are a lot of things that would allow us to avoid the effects of climate change, even if India and China decided, no, we're not going to have this treaty with you. No, that was the whole problem with the Kyoto Global Warming Accords. India and China said, okay, this is a great idea, you in the West, you go and pay the entire burden of it, and we'll grow our economy with the old dirty technologies. You guys get to be angels, we can be devils, and you will pay the balance of it. And of course we said no. So now China is finally having to have engineering solutions to its horrible economy, to its horrible dirty economy too. Which it never started cleaning up until it had a more capitalist government to begin with, even as they were creating the problem too. So, it's very important that we find solutions around this problem and that we embrace technologies. Our scientists are the ones that are going to get us out of this problem, not our bureaucrats and our, feckless politicians. It's not going to be Al Gore. Al Gore didn't invent the internet, the scientists did. Al Gore is not going to solve, his policy prescriptions are not going to solve this problem. Rather, it's going to be good science, engineering solutions, and the ability to change that variable of how much sunlight is coming into the earth as opposed to leaving, so that we can gradually cool things off. And there are many ways we can do it without necessarily going back to the Dark Ages, or having a overweening federal bureaucracy that is extremely expensive. God knows this poor gentleman is probably violating a lot of National Education Association regulations with the kind of science projects he does at school, because they are not safe enough and so forth. Fortunately, the federal government doesn't have all consuming control over everything, but we can have solutions that are not so government oriented. So thank you for your time, and hopefully we can talk about some more specific solutions in future videos as to how we can reduce the threat of global climate change and too much CO2 in the atmosphere and all the other things without having huge government bureaucracies. And it is possible, just by reordering the taxes and a few other common sense solutions. Thank you. I look forward to your replies.